start. All right, thank you, everybody. This is our July 8th meeting of the Fair Rent Commission. I'm going to call the meeting to order. I want to welcome everybody in attendance. Let's go around and take attendance first, just so we can have self we have before we proceed. I'm Tom Lambert. I'm the chairman of the Fair Rent Commission. I'm present. We have starting with right.
Ahmed Ibrahim, present.
Doug Jones.
And Carl, I see that you're on Zoom, and you're present as well.
Yes.
And we have,
James Casey.
that leaves us just without Eileen and Lori. So Mark, I think you're taking the minutes again today. Okay. So the third item on our agenda here, consider approve the minutes from our May 16th special meeting. Do I have a motion to approve? And second. Okay, all those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Vote hearing none. Minutes are approved. Okay, so our fourth hearing agenda item is case number 2024-03, Darling versus Redwood Capital Partners. Why don't we have introductions first from the parties and or the representatives who are here, just so we know that who we're talking to and who's talking to us, and then we can kind of start a little bit, go around a little small. So start closest to me.
I'm Janine Darling. I am the complainant.
I'm Elaine Spinelli. I'm here with Janine Darling.
Are you a witness? Party?
I am a witness.
Witness, okay.
I'm Anthony Gigliotti. I am the leasing and property manager for the defendant.
I'm Karash Marjani of the law firm of Lofsy Rosen in Stamford, and I represent the respondents. And I just want to be clear that the actual owner and our client is 302 Soundview LLC. I think the respondent was misidentified in the complaint, and I think Mark understood that, but I just want to make sure that that's made clear to the members of the commission. Thanks for having us.
We'll make sure that's reflected in our minutes. And then anybody else who's going to be testifying?
Ben Spiegel is here just as a representative of the respondent.
Okay. Nice to meet you all. I'm going to kind of go over what my idea for the process is going to be. When I say idea, as you may or may not know, this is the very first Fairfield Fair Rent Commission matter to go to a hearing. So in some ways, we are guided by what we have as in our ordinance, what our charges, but in other ways, we're kind of making this up as we go along with guys from the beginning. What I think our idea is, though, is for everybody to have a fair shake here, while at the same time making sure that we stay efficient in our process and our presentation. You communicate all the information that you want to communicate to us, what's most important. We'll then take in that information. We're going to have deliberations here. We'll come to a decision here today after those deliberations. This is not, I know we have counsel here, I'm an attorney as well. This is not a courtroom proceeding in what you might understand from TV or your past experience. We don't have the rules of evidence to guide us, for example. We don't have any procedures here. I'm the chair of the commission, so I'm going to try to, play umpire a little bit, call balls and strikes, and keep us moving along. But the process is kind of in your guys' hands here as far as letting us know what we should be considering, highlighting to us what's most important, and allowing us to make that decision. That being said, my idea for how we might proceed here is to have very short opening statements where you guys can summarize to us, either yourselves individually or through counsel, what your positions are. I'll start with the complainant and then go to the respondent. Then the presentation of evidence, which will start again with the complainant, either through your own narrative or that through a witness. Allow the respondent to ask questions. The respondent can then put forward their own information, in which case, Janine, you'll be allowed to ask questions yourself. And then conclude with very short closing statements before we, as a commission, decide. That's more or less the structure of what I was thinking about. That sounds good to everybody here too. The commissioners may themselves ask some questions. Certainly we have ideas as to what we're looking for, what we think might be important as well. And it's fairness to you guys, if you don't want you guys to have a full bench, so to speak, and understand what's important to us. So if a commissioner has a question, you should feel free to ask that. But otherwise, the ball's in your guys' court. So that being said, Janine, why don't we start with a little bit of an opening, just letting us know why you're here, the crux of your position is.
Sure. So a little over 10 months ago, to my current address, 302 Soundview Avenue, Apartment 1. And I believe it was about 2 weeks later that the current owner and his entourage came through the building. And at some juncture, I don't know whether the date is December or February, because it wasn't until February that it began to be communicated to purchase the building. And since then, it's been really difficult to get anything attended to. The grounds are a mess. I moved into a building that had very well manicured grounds with flowers and everything taken care of. It was pristine. It now looks, well, you can see from the pictures. At some juncture, a couple of months ago, the building manager came in to look at some repairs that I had requested. The most critical of which were screens that are either ripped or completely missing. These particular screens means that I can't open up, I can't create a cross vent in the apartment, I can't open windows that I need to open. It's debris, pollen, all kinds of things. There were a couple other things as well that are less important to me, but nonetheless are within the owner's purview. And I have been making the owner aware through what I want us to use building about things that need to be attended to. I've gotten a great deal of simply pushback or just nobody answering or paying attention or getting it done. Right now, there's another matter that I'm really concerned about. We've got a set of Bilco doors in the back. One of them is wide open right now. We can go right into the basement and into the building. That is where our laundry facilities are. We have shared laundry. And so anybody can go down there. Anybody can be in the building. That's concerning to me, since that's when I do my laundry. In terms of things needing to be done, I've tried to be very comprehensive in my complaint. In terms of proposed rent, I am paying a certain fee now. The proposal of what the rent is going to be increased to does not match any narratives that I have put together as a document within my complaint that is, again, very comprehensive. Shows you the properties that are more apples to apples than not, compared to what the owner provided as the comps that he said that he was using to place the value on my apartment. I guess the last thing is, and I've been very broad here, and so assuming there's going to be questions. The last thing is that my apartment was advertised as 1,000 square feet. It's not. It's 660, and that is with a hallway that runs down the length of it to get to the primary bedroom and then a secondary, small secondary bedroom. I even measured that to include square footage. I don't have to include that, but I guess I'm trying to say that the apartment is not the size that it was advertised as either. Either way, I am paying quite a lot more per square foot than the apartment that was just rented upstairs, I think in April, that was renovated with granite countertops, new cabinetry, I believe new appliances, has a wonderful water view, has 2 decorative fireplaces. It's, a step above my apartment in terms of what it has. And based on their square footage, I began to have the conversation with the manager, who verbally told me, and he said to me, I said, that doesn't track, you've already established a baseline of $2 per square foot, and to raise my rent would bring way over that. And he said, we can do what we want, and we'll just evict you. So I'm here because I believe that the document that I have provided tells the real story about what is going on here. I should not have to be in a position where there is clearly the responsibility taken care of, and I keep asking for them to be taken care of, and there's not. You can see that in the document as well, what's not. What I would like to have happen, the outcome is also, but I think the outcome, I would think the outcome should be. So that is in the document, I can review that with anybody who's interested. But again, I try to be really comprehensive, so not to take up anybody's time here as we to answer questions. I do think it's important at some point that we actually go over page 8, which is the comparatives to my apartment in my neighborhood, in my zip code, and then there are a few that are outside the zip code. I think that more than anything tells the story in terms of the rent. I'm actually asking for a reduction in the rent.
So thank you for that. We will get into a more, I think, robust presentation and evidence provide for us. And yeah, my idea for supplementing what you just provided to us, in terms of your statement, but showing us which documents in particular which we pay attention to, why that's. So we do that next. We can also provide witnesses and to or supplement through your own sort of further details that you think are important to consider as well. Okay.
Like, continue.
No. This is the idea is just for openings right now, so just kind of summaries, which I think we understand your position right now. I'm gonna ask the respondents sort of opening position next, and then we'll get into the more substantive question and answer, in which the respondent or their attorney may ask you some questions, and vice versa. You can ask them some evidence as well. Then we'll close with wrapping this all together. And once we hear all the evidence, why again advocating in that position. Okay. Counsel?
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I will be summary. The issue before the commission today is whether this rent increase for a 2-bedroom, 1-bath unit in Fairfield to the amount of $3,150 is harsh and unconscionable. That's a very high standard. And I would submit, based on the evidence that we're about to discuss, that it absolutely is an appropriate rent for the unit. It is not a harsh and unconscionable amount. There are a few reasons that I'm just going to highlight that we'll talk about a little bit more when Mr. Gigliotti testifies, that I think give rise to that conclusion. Number one, this unit is not 500 or 600 square feet. It's in excess of 1,000 units, 1,000 square feet, I should say. And we know from the direct comparable unit, which is the unit directly upstairs, that rented in March for $3,100, would have rented for more if it were in the summer. The rent that's being proposed for this unit is appropriate because that is by far the most comparable unit of all of the units we're going to discuss today. It is materially identical to this unit. The unit that the complainant has an additional half bath. It does have a fireplace. There are not new appliances in it. But that is a very similar, directly above unit to the complainant's. And I would submit that it suggests, having rented at $3,100, and I think as my client will testify, worth more than that today, and certainly worth more than that were to rent in August when the complainant's lease expires, is just positive evidence of what the rental market is for this particular unit occupied by the complainant. And I'll also show the commission, I've submitted them already, but I'll have my client go through other comps from the MLS in Fairfield that show that this is not, as the complainant appears to be suggesting, an $1,800 to $2,000 unit. And in fact, there are studio units in the town of Fairfield that rent for more than that. So I would submit that the contention that this unit occupied by the complainant should be reduced in price is totally untenable. $1,800 to $2,000 for a two-bedroom unit in Fairfield is absolutely inappropriate and not justified by the market. My client will also talk about the comps that the complainant has submitted, and will distinguish those for the commission. And we'll talk briefly about the minor repair issues that have been raised by the complainant. And I know the commission is aware of this, but there are requirements in the ordinance that the unit be reasonably livable, and that it comply with the municipal ordinances. There's absolutely no suggestion that the minor repair issues, about which, by the way, there is some controversy, in any way render this unit unlivable, or in any way render it in violation of any municipal or health department or other ordinances. So I would submit that those issues shouldn't adjust the opinion of the commission as to the value of this rental premises. So in conclusion, and as the evidence will show, this is a unit that should rent for more than $3,000. It's a unit that, if rented at $3,000 or $3,150, which is the specific sum of the requested by the respondent, that's not a harsh and unconscionable increase. And we will present our evidence through our witness when the time comes. Thank you for having us.
Okay, Ms. Garling, so you've already obviously told us a fair amount, but now's your time to really present your evidence. You've submitted documents to us, and I have that started up on page 8, for example. You can do this through a narrative. You can have us ask questions, however you want. I mean, I don't know if anybody's necessarily ready with questions right now, so much just kind of riff off of what you said. But why don't we start with presenting what evidence, you have specific documents that you can draw our attention to help us in our deliberations.
Okay, I'd like to go to page 3.
And is this how Soundview apartment number 1 was advertised?
That is correct.
Okay.
So, again, I have measured the apartment. I know how to measure this. It's under 660 square feet. So it's quite a small apartment. It feels like some of the ceilings are higher, not all of them, some of the ceilings are higher. So it does feel roomier than it is, but the square footage is really quite small. The apartment was advertised in this way, and it's talking about how it's been painstakingly renovated and updated to allow for families living. The building, while it is built in stone, is a mess. I mean, it is falling apart, it hasn't been changed in a long time. I don't know when the carpet in the common area has been cleaned. As I said, the grounds, we get pictures of the grounds, are a mess. The neighbors have complained about it. It's so different from when I did move in. There are no Carrera-like tiles in the bathroom. There is no luxury vinyl flooring in the kitchen. As a matter of fact, the vinyl flooring is coming up. There are no floor-to-ceiling windows anywhere. No idea what that is. The owner recently has attempted to charge me for a small amount of space in the basement. It has some high ceilings. You can see that the basement was advertised as with the storage, as rent includes storage. The landscaping will be done for you. There has been no landscaping at all, and I will get to those pages in the presentation. Although this particular advertisement speaks to a nice area for grills and patio furniture, the apartment that was rented on the second floor said that there were grills and outdoor eating areas and decks and all kinds of things in the advertisement that were part of the lease to the second floor.
Where was this advertisement from?
This advertisement was from down to page 5. It was advertised on as long as we're on 5, it's 46. So on page 6, the apartment directly above me that was just rented for $3,150 is advertised as 1,675 square feet. So, even if my apartment were 1,000 square feet, the council is trying to make the point that the apartments are identical. They are not. That's number one. Number two, again, I don't have granite, I do not have fireplaces, I do not have a ocean. I don't have updated cabinetry, I don't have any of those things. And so to suggest that my apartment should be the same rent as the one above me, doesn't make any sense. Again, on page 6, this is how the apartment on the second floor was advertised. Fortunately, the listing was taken down in April, so I don't have a copy of all the things that I'm saying are listed there. I'm sure I can get a copy because they hold attention. A lot of things advertised that don't exist. Other unit on page 7. Again, people who just moved out were evicted, by the way. They had a lease that, a legal document, a lease that would to go to the end of July. And on the Friday before Memorial Day weekend, a marshal came and made the eviction papers. I don't know why. I only use that to illustrate kind of thing that we're dealing with here. I don't think that the landlord cares at all about anybody that's living in that building. He's got plans for the building, and anybody who's there is in this. So on page 7 is the last advertisement I could find in town. Advertised at 2,000 square feet. Because the people who were there until recently were there for 5 or 6 years. You'll note that on, going back to page 3 now. At the bottom of the page, what the problem is here, one of the problems is that there has been a return advertised to the public based on this property. And I can't help it if there's been a miscalculation by the new owner about what the square footage is or what the cost per square foot is. But it doesn't make any sense that the apartment above me that was advertised at 1,675 square feet with improvements that have been made would be my apartment at 660 square feet would be the same rent. Upstairs is $2 per square foot. Right now I am paying $3 and change per square foot. On page 4 is the advertisement of the owner's website. There's an LLC that owns the apartment building. Capital Advisors. They say that they own Soundview, and you can see that they are projecting an IRR of 20% and cash on cash at 6.9. Okay, so they've already projected something. I think that is an issue because they projected it using numbers that they're not looking at. Page 5, we've already taken a look at. This is how the apartment that I am living in was advertised. On page 6, again, that's the second floor that was just rented for $3,150. That is 1,675 square feet. That's what Sears figure looking at. I'm going to go to 8 now. This is a lot to go through. when the owner suggested, and you can go all the way to the right side of the page. The new owner, excuse me, has suggested that these are the comps that they were using in order to come up with the price for the apartment. Scroll back and forth, you can see that both of these apartments have all kinds of amenities and upgrades and things that, 302 South Avenue do not have. Those kinds of things, even though there are all kinds of things we have that count. They are still priced at $2 per square foot and then $2.36 per square foot. With lots and lots of amenities. So these were the comps. I can tell you that originally 20 Sherman Street, which is the first comp, was on the market for $500. They had to reduce the price on it because it wasn't going. Same thing with 1153 Starfield Road. That was on for $3,800. They had to take that down $500 as well. Because that was not. And that's, they are more, the buildings are modern, they're quite upscale, and they are going for $2. The Fairfield comps in the middle of the page 8, comps that are in my neighborhood, right around where I live. Same zip code, except for 1 and 682. And you can see everything that is highlighted are the upgrades or additions that these apartments have that we do not have, at least I do not have. Also see at the bottom that the price per square foot runs between $1.41 per square foot to a high of $2.41 per square foot. So these are the true comps, not the ones on the end, to where I am living. In terms of 302 Soundview on the left-hand side of the page, you'll see asterisks. My apartment again was advertised at 1,000 square feet. It's not. I don't even think it's 660. It's less than that. The apartment above me was advertised as 1,615 square feet. I have seen earlier versions of advertisements for that apartment that peg it at 1,400 square feet. But this rental, the one that rented in April, it was advertised as 1,650 square feet. And the townhome had been advertised at 1,000 square feet. Again, scroll to the bottom, you'll see that my apartment is at $3.26 per square feet. It basically has this place with no amenities. In that building, I am paying much more than the other two ones. So you've already benchmarked upstairs at $2 per square foot. Why would my apartment be comps again go from $1.41 to $2.41 with lots and lots of things. We do not have. The ones on the end are, I've got to use the word preposterous. They have so many more amenities and upgrades and things that the younger Soundview does not have, and yet they are still at $2 per square foot, $2.36 per square foot. Council is using words like egregious. I use data when I'm looking at what is fair. Whether there's an opinion that it's not egregious, I guess that depends on what you're asking. All I know is that the data shows that I should be paying somewhere around $2 per square foot. Let's see. There's a lot of back and forth. manager, owner, manager has requested that we communicate through a portal that we use to ask for repairs or communicate with the manager of the building. The manager of the building does not attend to any of the matters at hand. There are no responses. As I said, there is an open door. It has been open now for, I don't know, maybe a month longer. Anybody could just walk right into the basement, right into the house. This is just not acceptable. It's just, right now, it's completely open. It's stuck in an open position. I mean, literally. When it's closed, there's no lock on it. Again, in our lease, there is a passage that says that I am responsible for the wear and tear on the appliances or anything like that. And of course, it's absolutely clear. However, it does says all of the repairs to the premises will be done by the owner. Before the owner bought this building, we were asked, all of us, you know, what is it that you need to have done? What are the things that are, you know, repairs that need to be made? I had asked for the screens to be repaired by the original owner, but once he determined that the building was going to be sold to the new owner, they would not do any repairs to the screen or put in a screen. I don't understand how that could be categorized as a minor repair that I should be making on a building that was built in 1844. It's not a minor repair. I have no idea how to do anything like that. I'm not a you know, contractor to do that kind of stuff. And it was that way when I moved in. And again, that's why I'd asked for it to be repaired. It wasn't repaired. They asked what repairs needed to be made. I never saw anything about it. Portal, which we communicate with. Although I'm communicating in the portal, I'm getting replies via email from the owner. So there's been some found in my spam filter, an email that was sent to me. And I responded to it and put a copy of it into Building. In that response, there had been a request for me to, so water leak in the ceiling that needs to be repaired. There was a request to provide dates for, and 6-hour time frames when somebody could call in. That works, and I provided those dates, but 2 weeks in, there's been no response. There's never any response. Go to I'd also like to illustrate on page 18 how the owner, Ben Spiegel, his emails are all very, you know, want everything to be right, want a courteous, professional relationship. But we'll go to the bottom of page 18. I've asked him not to refer to me as Janine. We are not familiar with one another. I've asked him to use my full name. And you can see how he answered me at the top. There is a great deal of hubris here. I'm not interested in it. I just want to live in my apartment, proper rent, and have the things that the landlord is supposed to repair. Fair enough. It's really quite simple. On page 19, you can see that there's a lot of things asked for. I can make some payments on time. Up until a few weeks ago, they were not reflected in the portal. I asked them to be corrected how many times. They have now been corrected to my rent. So you can see things that have been put into the portal and without response. Go to page 22. This is how the property looked when I moved in. And 23 on, you will see how it looks now. It's really nice. On 23, that's how it looks. On 24, this is basically what has happened. The grass was cut on May 3rd. It had gotten to 25 inches tall. Then it was weed whacked in late May because it had gotten really tall again. Then it was mowed once in June, and it has not been mowed since. It's just a mess. There is no landscaping, there is no care for the lawn, there's, that's not to mention, the lawns are not taken care of, all kinds of ticks and things live in those grasses, and so I can't use the outdoors. There's nothing that I can use there. On 25, this is how the building is advertised. On 27 forward, you can see what it really looks like. It's a mess. The building, although it's stone, is really sturdy. It's coming apart. A lot of it there is moss growing on everything. There are broken pipes. There are doors that haven't been taken forever. You can see that in the driveway and near the steps that there is vegetation coming up because it hasn't been here. It's really a shame because it was really a beautiful property. I'm so pleased that we did there. There's also a lock at the top of the stairs from the basement. This I put in the building again a number of weeks ago. See on 38 and 39 that lock is sitting there. Again, that door could be locked and nobody could come up to the common areas of the house. But even that has been there. So I guess what I'm saying is that all in all, I believe that I have a very, very strong case for with real data and no descriptive words that speak to the rent. My rent should be $2 per square foot, and that is what I am asking for. I would also like on page 2, you can see what I have the expected outcome is. I want a credit for all the months that I've not been able to open up windows in my house because the screens are not repaired. I want the things that need to be repaired on page 2. And there were photographs taken of my apartment with my belongings. I do not want those photographs used for any public or private purpose, most especially for real estate. So these are all the things I'm asking for on page 2. And I'm happy to take questions or show you the measurements of the apartment. I have those with me as well. So I guess that's all I'm going to say right now.
I think it makes sense to see pictures of the unit itself too.
4.0.
Have that.
No, I think that, I mean, I have the measurements, so you'll be able to kind of see it, but you can also see it. I believe that there are still pictures of it online somewhere, but I don't have any.
Any questions from any of the commissioners for this witness?
Yeah. So, Ms. Doran, when your lease started, was it September 23?
Correct.
And when the new owner bought the property? Is it December 23 or?
They came through 2 weeks after I had moved in, and then I think the purchase was completed in December. It is a commercial residential building. There's a cell tower in the building, and the owner is it's rent for the cell tower.
You mentioned in page 1 and you were talking here that the new owner moved in February 24.
So February is when we started to pay rent. That was the first time that we started to pay rent. There's no way to pay rent unless we pay Venmo or Zelle. There's no place in the portal to pay rent, so it's
Sorry, your document saying that the new owner of the property in February 23.
No, that is an error. We started paying the owner on rent in February.
And the owner confirmed that when you bought the property.
They bought it in December of 2023.
February 2024, just fall.
So February 24.
No,
correct.
online, if you go to documentation for this property, it's for December of 2023.
So
I have the
you
purchase.
bought the property after Miss Darling started here.
That's
Correct.
So the second second floor apartment, it's like mirror image, the same exact, like the first floor, or there's no difference.
So just, are you addressing that to our side?
In general.
Well, why don't we ask questions to the owner of the owner of the presentation?
Sure. The other question to Ms. Zareen is, when you were showing the apartment, first time you went to see the apartment, did you question its size? It was advertised as something.
I
Did you
wasn't,
question the size when you actually saw it?
no, because the size at that juncture did not really matter to me. The apartment suited my needs.
Mhm.
I hope that it will continue to suit their needs for probably not a very long period of time. But no, it did not become an issue until I was told that the comps that the owner was using to price my apartment were apples to oranges. And also, the second floor apartment was advertised as 1,675 square feet. And so, you know, I don't, if that's it, then there's nothing identical about it. And if my apartment is identical, then the listing was, and people upstairs are paying for something that they don't have.
So we're not looking at the people upstairs in this case, just in general, you didn't question the size when it was shown to you.
Did I question the size? No, I didn't need to. There was no reason to.
Commissioners with questions? Carl, any questions?
Not at this time.
Okay, so counsel, if you have questions for the witness, you're welcome to ask them now. If not, Ms. Darling, you can proceed with your witness. I'll let counsel go first.
I have no questions for Ms. Darling.
Ms. Darling, so that I see you have you're a witness, I think you said before. You can ask for questions that you think are going to be relevant to us. Put your case that way or any other information you have to present to us. Okay.
She's here on a matter of storage. Since you can see from the advertised apartment that the storage in the basement was included, the new owner was trying to charge me for the storage.
I accompanied Janine to see the apartment the first time she saw it. I think the realtor's name was Dina. And Dina took us through the entire apartment and then downstairs through the inner stairway to the basement, showed us the washing machines and dryers, and showed us the other renters' storage areas and where Janine could put her things. It was a smaller area, but still it was that it was included. She was told it was included, and I heard it and I saw it. We were shown the area. So when Janine was told now that she is going to be charged for that space, I jumped in and said, I want to speak to that.
Have you seen the condition of the property since initially viewing it with Ms. Norton?
It's a completely different place from the outside. Again, the window screens that were, one didn't exist in the living room at all, it was just gone. And the one in the bedroom is torn. And saw those, but that was to be included on a list given to the owner for repairs. And I guess that.
I'm looking through your release now, Ms. Darling. Just glancing through. I don't see anything in here about storage or there. I don't know if that's contemplated in your release.
It was advertised as with storage.
Right. I'm not seeing included or an extra charge one way or another, but I just wanna make sure that I'm not missing something
No, there is nothing in the lease.
one way or the other.
It only says extra space in that and basement for storage also.
Okay.
When we walked through, we were specific to the basement and shown the storage area that we would use as part of the rent.
We're gonna hear from respondents soon enough as to the basis for their charge. Is there any other information you want for us to consider? You're gonna have an opportunity to close, so to speak, to summarize your position.
Sure.
You're also gonna have an opportunity to ask the respondent any questions you might have for yourself. But as far as your presentation of benefits right now, is there anything else you want us to consider? Thank you very much. So if you're resting, then I'll ask council to start with the response to this.
All right, thank you. Mr. Gigliotti, before we get going on specifics, can you just tell us your experience with the rental market in Fairfield?
I started in the Fairfield County real estate market in 2016. Rentals, property management, home sales, purchases and sales. I currently manage roughly 60 apartments. When I say that, I mean I re-lease those out. I do lease extensions if the tenants are going to be staying. If the tenants are moving out, I list them and find new tenants. And I'm also the main point of contact if they ever have any issues. And then I direct them to the appropriate party, depending on the building, the owner, and the arrangements I have with them for property management. I'd say I've rented roughly 300 or 400 apartments in Fairfield over the last 8 years.
All right, and moving along, I want to ask you about a few things that Ms. Darling talked about. First is the Bilco doors. Do they have access to the units themselves or to somewhere else in the premises?
Now, the Bilco doors enter a boiler room that contains nothing, and that boiler room has access to the laundry room, and the laundry room does have access upstairs to the lobby. However, every individual unit is locked from the lobby, so no one theoretically could go into the building through the Bilco doors and access a tenant's.
Have you tried to lock or relock the Bilco doors yourself?
I have shut the Bilco doors myself a number of times over the past couple of months.
I want to ask you about this listing, and I don't have page numbers here in Ms. Darling's submission, but I think it's page 3 with a highlighted text. How 302 Soundview was advertised. Was that your advertisement?
No, that was the previous property manager and leasing agent, Ina Lieberman, out of Milford.
Did you have any involvement whatsoever with these representations or this advertisement?
Absolutely not.
There's a hotpads.com printout that Ms. Darling has submitted. Were you involved in that?
Absolutely not. I never listed apartment 2 in Soundview. In fact, that's listed for $29.75. It just wouldn't make sense for me to list it for that and rent it for substantially more. I actually leased that apartment through a cross sale. Someone called me about a 2-bedroom apartment I had on the market that was already leased. I told them I have something similar. They saw it, they liked it, and that's how I got that unit rented.
All right. Specific question. We heard a lot of reference to dollar per square foot. In your experience in the Fairfield residential real estate market, is that a metric that's used?
No, it's totally irrelevant. It's never ever used, whether it's multi-million-dollar home sales, rentals, or a $500,000 house. And that's because it's an extremely niche market. The neighborhoods, the streets are vastly different. The age of homes, there's just so many different metrics that just render that a useless medium.
Is the landlord taking the position, moving on to the storage issue, that storage is not included in the lease agreement?
Correct.
Have you reviewed the lease agreement for that?
Yes,
Is it in fact included in the lease?
it's not included.
Is that why you've had that discussion with Ms. Darling about paying extra for storage?
Correct.
All right, I'm going to try to be efficient here and move through some of these exhibits, but we heard a little bit about the leases. There are 2 leases here, one that looks like it begins October 2022, The other September 2023. Are you familiar with those?
Yes, I am.
Okay. And did you or the current owner create either of those leases?
No.
What is the which is the current, excuse me, what is the accurate term of the current lease that Ms. Darling has?
The accurate term is the lease dated 2023 to 2024.
Do you consider the $2,150 in that lease to be below market?
Absolutely.
There was reference to a cell phone tower. Are you familiar with that?
Yes.
Do you have an idea as to why the rent may have been $2,150 under the prior ownership?
The prior ownership's business model was to buy properties that have cell phone towers on them. They would then sell the cell phone towers for substantial lump sums. I think this one was around $550,000. It was sold to T-Mobile. And then they had a property manager manage the building. They were completely just, they didn't check in on it. They weren't concerned with anything. And then when it came time to sell, they sold it. And in fact, they sold it for below market because they just wanted to get out. Their main business model, again, is a cell phone tower.
All right, I'm going to ask you about the upstairs unit. Is that unit 2?
Correct.
I'm going to pass around. All right, so I'm just going to ask you a few questions about this upstairs unit, unit 2. Thank you. When was this lease entered into?
Was entered into towards the end of March, March 24th, 2024.
Okay, now we're talking with respect to Ms. Darling of an August 31st, 2024 lease expiration. Just apples to apples in terms of time of year, do you have an opinion as to whether the actual rent for this unit would be higher or lower than this $3,100 if it were rented in the same time frame?
I can concretely say with the data for the 29-unit apartment building I rent that August versus March is probably a 10 to 20%. Depending on, well, that's for the studio units. In this case, I put more towards it.
All right, so this unit, again,
You said 10 to 20%.
Right.
Over a 6-month period.
Yes, it is the winter, March, February, January, December, November.
That's your experience with the market.
Correct.
Rents are gonna move that much.
They do. It's the best time to rent is around September 1 and around June 1.
what do you think this unit would rent for upstairs if it were renting at the end of August?
3,300.
Now, in terms of the size, we're going to get to specifics, but I'm going to ask you a general question. How does the upstairs unit compare in size to Ms. Darling's unit?
It's absolutely identical.
Are there any differences between the two units?
The unit upstairs has an additional half bathroom, and as Ms. Darling referenced, it has a decorative fireplace. Did put in granite countertops. The cabinets that were installed were used discount cabinets that are commensurate with the cabinets in Ms. Darling's unit, and the appliances were not upgraded at all. They are extremely similar to Ms. Darling's.
Okay, so if you indicated that unit would rent for $3,300 or so, is the $3,150 that you were asking for Ms. Darling's unit consistent with the upstairs unit, given those differences you just described?
Yes.
All right, I'm going to move on to.
Before we move on,
Yeah, sure.
the differences in units, can you tell us just with some degree of certainty what your view is on the square footage?
I was actually about to get to that, but yeah. You can go ahead and answer the question. I'll get to the
So
example.
I believe it was done by the appraiser for the bank that purchased it, but it was professionally, the square footage of every unit was professionally reported by a licensed real estate appraiser, and he came to the conclusion that the square footage of both Ms. Darling's unit and Unit 2 upstairs were both 1,204 square feet. And the square footage of the other townhouse unit was 1904.
And where's this, I'm guessing this document's coming from, that appraisal?
Correct. There's a floor plan on the second page as well.
Okay, that's what I was gonna ask.
All right, so now that everyone has this, Mr. Gigliotti, let me just ask you, what are we looking at here on the second page?
On the left, you see the floor plan for the first floor. And on the right, you see the floor plan for the second floor. That's inclusive of all three units.
All right, but when we're looking at just Ms. Darling's unit versus the upstairs unit 2 that we just talked about with the lease, which part of this graph are we looking at?
It is the 28 feet by 43 feet rectangle on the top of the first floor plan.
And these units are stacked on top of each other, is that right?
Correct.
Okay, so given this sketch, what is the approximate square footage of each of these units?
The approximate square footage of each unit is 1,200.
And forgetting about the exact square footage of either unit, how do the units compare in size to each other?
In my opinion, they're identical, with the exception of the presence of a half bath in the second floor unit.
But does that half bath increase the actual size of the unit, or is that contained within the same dimension?
Contained within the same dimension.
Did you also, forgetting about the exact building we're talking about today, did you also run comps on the MLS?
I did.
All right, so we'll just wait for these to be passed around. I'm going to ask you a few questions about the comps. All right, so what, first of all, this submission that we made to the commission, did you generate these comps?
Yes.
Okay, what were the criteria that you used to spit out the comps that we're looking at?
I did up to 2 bedrooms within 2 miles of the property address with 2 or less bathrooms restricted to the town of Fairfield. Rented within the last 365 days or currently active on the market.
All right, so let's just briefly go through some of these. Starting with 2 Beacon Square, do you see that one?
Yes.
Just explain very briefly to the commission how this compares to the subject unit.
So this is not an apples to apples comparison. However, it is an 882 square foot 1-bedroom unit that rented for $29.50. That, in my opinion, is indicative of the fact that there's no way a 2-bedroom unit with 300 square feet more is worth over $1,000 less. And that goes for the.
I'll ask you about it one at a time. 2 Beacon Square, Unit 8. Tell us briefly about that one.
It's exact same synopsis as 2 Beacon Square unit.
So in other words, the subject unit, Ms. Darling's unit, should be closer to that $29.50 price.
I would say it should be more
And what's the reason for that?
because these are 882 square foot 1-bedroom units, and the addition of a 2nd bedroom in Fairfield is extremely valuable.
Same question. So let me try to skip forward here. Same analysis on 2 Beacon Unit 10.
Correct.
109 to 113 Churchill.
Yes, so this is in the Grassmere area of town, which is a far less desirable area. It's close to Route 1, it's close to the highway. And this is for a 2-bedroom, 1-bath, 773 square foot apartment that's a multifamily. And I say multifamily, I just want to draw one distinction between this multifamily and the multifamily at Soundview. Soundview has a lobby, it has off-street parking, it has an additional layer of security. It's not like you're walking up, to the second floor. You actually get to go into a lobby and get into your unit. It's more like an apartment building condominium feel as opposed to
The lobby is accessible through the Bilco.
you would have to go into the Bilco door, into the laundry room, and upstairs, and it would take you into the lobby, correct?
All right, 289 Riverside Drive, unit number 1.
Yes. This is a 2-bedroom, 1-bath. It's the same exact square footage. It goes for $3,250. Its location is very close to the Bridgeport line, which is where, generally speaking, apartments tend to get less desirable in Fairfield. And I think this is indicative of the ask price for Miss Darling's unit.
All right, 1153 Stratfield.
1153 Stratfield is slightly bigger and has an additional bathroom. However, it's completely not updated. It's got, linoleum floors. It's very, very dated. And it's, in my opinion, indicative, again, of Ms. Darling's unit is worth over $3,000.
38 Poe Court.
38 Poe Court is a 2-bedroom, 1-bath townhouse that's 800 square feet, 2,800, again, 400 square feet less. It's in one of the less desirable areas of town, goes to the Kings Highway, Black Rock Turnpike cutoff.
Okay, so what does that mean in terms of what you think Ms. Darling's unit should be compared to Poe?
I would say this puts Miss Darling's unit, again, around $3,150.
All right, only a couple more. 79 Gate Ridge Road, unit 79.
So this one, again, is extremely dated. It's 2-bedroom, 2-bath. It's 184 square feet more, and it's listed for $3,300. And again, I think this is indicative of a rental price above $3,000 for Miss Darling's unit.
All right, 161 Naps Highway.
So 161 Naps Highway is a 2-bedroom, 2-bath. It was rented for $3,550. It's larger and has an additional bathroom, but it's also rented for $400 more than the ask price for Ms. Darling's unit. And again, I think based on the condition of this unit compared to the condition of Ms. Darling's unit, $3,150 is a fair, reasonable rent.
All right, the last two, I guess I'll lump together. These are outliers, in other words, units that should be more expensive than Miss Darling's. The Ridgeway one.
100%.
All right, now, Ms. Darling in her complaint says that her 2-bedroom unit should be $1,800 to $2,000 a month. Did you remember seeing that?
I do.
Now, I think you touched on it a little bit earlier, but have you had experience of renting studio apartments in Fairfield?
I have. The 29-unit building I rent is consisted of 14 studio apartments.
I'm going to ask you about these one by one, but we'll just wait for the commission to get the copies. All right, so, were you personally involved in these rentals?
Correct.
Okay. And are they all studios?
Yes.
Oh, so that means 0 bedrooms, right?
Correct.
Okay. And as compared to Ms. Darling's suggestion for her 2-bedroom unit of 1,800 to 2,000, what are these renting at?
These studio apartments, which range from 500 to 600 square feet, offer no dishwasher, offer no washer dryer, and no amenities. These rent for anywhere between right now $1,950 and $2,100. The renewals go up to, I think I just renewed one, unit 304 for $23.25 a month, and that's a 550 square foot studio. That's right up the road.
And I know this may be simple, but in terms of value and rental price, what is the difference between a studio unit and a 2-bedroom unit?
It's massive. It's hard to even put that number on it. It's just
So, large. In your opinion, is there any rational basis to give a unit that has 2 bedrooms in Fairfield, and specifically Ms. Darling's unit, the same rent or lower than these studio units?
No.
All right, just a couple more questions. I want to ask you about some of the comps that Ms. Darling submitted. Did you have occasion to look through those?
I did.
All right, so I'm going to ask you some questions about Ms. Darling's comps. And the question is, are these comps, and if not, why not? Okay, so let's just move through them. First one, these aren't in the same order as your spreadsheet, is 539 Naps Highway. Do you see that?
Yes, and 539 Naps Highway was purchased in 2022 for $262,500. There's no record on MLS of it ever being rented, so the data was pulled from a third-party site like Realtor or Zillow, which is unreliable. There's tons of fraudulent rental listings. The amount of real estate fraud going on right now is absolutely tremendous. I get calls every week from someone trying to sell me a lot that they do not in fact own. And so I don't know if this property is accurate, but let's say it is. It's a 2-bedroom, 1-bath, dilapidated house. It was listed as needing to be rebuilt, and it's only 800 square feet.
All right, next one, 1789 Stratfield, listed at 2,400.
Yes, so. Yeah, so this is, it's actually listed as a 3-bedroom, 1-bath. It's on an extremely busy road, double yellow line road. It's very difficult to rent on, especially with 2 or 3 bedrooms, because those typically rent to families, part of the yellow line roads don't jive. It's also in relatively poor condition. It's baseboard heating. It's got no central air. In fact, almost all of her comps have no central air. So, in my opinion, this is worth 2,400. Hers is worth substantially more.
All right, 2121 Kings Highway, which is listed at 1,900, was supplied by the complainant. Is this a fair comp, and if not, why not?
No, it's not. Inside, it's linoleum floor, peeling. It's absolutely awful condition. You have to climb outside those stairs to get into the unit, and this is where I drew the distinction between these multifamilies and the multifamily at Soundview, where it's much more desirable. This is also in an extremely less desirable area of town. It's right by the highway and Route 1, and it's surrounded by homes in just poor condition, generally speaking.
All right, final one, 461 Kings Highway East.
This is similar to the last one. It's a 2-bed, 1-bath. It's only 750 square feet. It doesn't state whether it's first or second floor or going up. Actually, it says right here, lovely second floor apartment. So again, this is an instance where you have to climb exterior, exterior stairs or height. A set of stairs within the main entrance. And it's in extremely poor condition based on the photos I was able to obtain.
All right, so is that a comparable unit?
No.
We're wrapping up. I want to ask you about repairs. Ms. Darling's complaint is that sure?
And it was from Ms. Darling's comps. She had a couple others listed here. 108 Longview Ave, 487 Rutland, 214 Melody Lane, and also a Sherman Street comp, another Stratfield Road comp. Did you look at those at all?
Yeah, so the Sherman Street and Stratfield Road, I don't believe are actually her comps. Am I correct there?
I can't answer your question.
I don't believe those are her comps. But the other ones, I was not able to obtain data on them on MLS. She likely obtained it from third-party sites, again, which could be totally accurate and reliable, but it's up to the me.
Did you try to obtain that on this?
I did.
Before I move on, Mr. Chairman, does that answer your question?
That answers my question.
All right, so I was looking at her complaint, Ms. Darling's complaint, and the mention that she makes of repairs is as follows. I asked for repairs of a ripped screen and a missing screen of 2 of my windows 90 days ago and then 30 days ago, with the request just being reviewed and no repair timeline offered. Is that correct?
To a certain extent.
Did you offer to replace the screens?
I did.
What was that discussion?
I offered to replace the screens with the same screens I use in all my apartment buildings, which you buy at Home Depot. They're adjustable, they're about 6 inches high. You put them in, you pull them, and it enables you to open the window and have it screened and open for a few inches. But it's not a custom screen that fits the window perfectly because all windows are custom made. There's no, standard size. You can't just go and buy a screen. You'd have to call Connecticut Glass and have it custom made, which is not the policy of this owner.
I'm just going to ask you a couple final questions about the town's ordinances. Under 87-2, subsection F, the commission has authority to essentially order a landlord to comply with municipal ordinances or state statutes relating to health and safety. To your knowledge, is the landlord in violation of any such statutes?
No.
Have you been notified by the state or the city of any such violation?
No.
Subsection I, again, refers to municipal ordinances, state statutes, or regulations relating to health and safety. Again, any such violations that exist as far as you're aware right now?
No.
One of the factors that the commission's empowered to look at, and I'm reading from number 6, is essentially to determine whether there are repairs to make the accommodations reasonably livable for the occupants. Is this unit livable? Is there anything about this unit that makes it not livable?
Absolutely not.
Okay, now based on everything that you just testified to, do you think the increase to $3,150 is harsh or unconscionable?
No.
Do you believe that's an appropriate rental amount for this particular unit?
Yes.
No further questions, thank you.
Any questions from this witness?
So, for the floor plan is concerned, you mentioned that, an extra bedroom, second bedroom in a unit is extremely valuable.
Yes.
I would agree with that. What would you say about the, extra half bath?
I'd say that's dependent on the particular tenant, but not nearly as much as a additional bedroom.
Well, I think they're equivalent either, but there seems to be some value there.
I'd put it at about $150.
Again, there's I'm concerned with the Bilco. Apparently, I feel that things are secure because someone can access the lobby, I guess, the common area. But all the tenants' units are blocked, so that's a secure situation here.
Yes.
The screens, I mean, I've seen these replacement screens that they're standing and they're about 6, 8, 10 inches high, something like that. What was there beforehand? Was it a full size screen?
I do not know, as when the current owner inherited the building, there is no screen there.
Suggest I've done this myself. You can get kits to create screens at Home Depot for $15. And they're expandable to all different kinds of sizes. It's needed. Quite often, it's sort of a shortcut, but we're not aware of what was there. The rip screen, is that a full size screen?
I believe so.
It is a full-size screen. So is it reasonable as to assume that the missing screen may also have been a full-size screen?
Yes.
Okay. So, there's 2 repairs I think that you can do for spend $30 down at Home Depot to have somebody put those things together. They take about 15 minutes. It's a water leak. What about the water leak? Is this a severe leak? Someone mentioned the water leak.
There's
I think the question is directed to, you can talk about, well, question the witness, you'll have the opportunity. But are you with the water leak?
Yes, so the water leak was result of some of the, basically the sink being turned off in the unit above when they were installing the new cabinets. I put Janine, I basically sent the general contractor who did the minor renovations upstairs over to Janine's unit to repair that water leak, and I never heard about it again. In fact, when I went over to her unit for her to walk me through her issues, she showed me screens, a plastic toilet seat, and a stain on her vanity. She never mentioned the water leak. So I was under the impression, accordingly, that that was resolved.
There was one in the kitchen that was fixed. This leak is not from the second floor, on the second floor. This is from, it looks like it has come from the roof. Water will find its way, as we all know. This is not anywhere where you're working. It's completely separate.
So there remains a leak.
I don't know that answer. I can only tell you that it did leak. There is a stain on the ceiling, and it's again, should it be repaired? Should it be fixed? Sure. That is less of a concern to me than the built door, because I do my laundry. If somebody can come in the building, I could walk out of my door, open up my apartment door, and somebody could be right there. This is not acceptable. It is unsafe.
All right, so we'll respond to this case for now. Any other questions from any other commissioners?
For these repairs, whether you consider them minor or not, let's take them one by one. For the screens, are you willing, why don't you clarify that? Are you willing to replace the screens? As I'm sure you know, there's online websites now that you can custom the screens very, very affordable price.
Yes.
Are you willing to do that?
Yes, I was unaware of that being the case. In fact, when I spoke to the general contractors I work with, my main business is new construction sales, they told me there's only 2 routes to go, and that's those screens I spoke about with all Connecticut glass. So I was under that impression. This is new information to me.
So the answer is yes, you're willing to.
Yes.
For the water stain in the ceiling, if it's not done yet, you are willing to do that.
Of course, if it was brought to my attention that day, I would have addressed it.
Is there any reason for this lock, this door, security door in the back? Is there any reason you want to put a lock there? Are you willing to put a lock there?
So I have gone and locked that shut and locked that building door a number of times over the past few months. Locked it from the inside so it can't be accessed from the outside. Only to find that it's later been unlocked. I don't know by who or how, but yes, we are going to install a lock there. We are also going to install locks on the 2 doors flanking the laundry room that contain the utilities.
So final question. Even if we agree, again, that's up for question still, if we agree that E150 is market, Fairfield, given the market and conditions and all of that, what do you think about the year-to-year increase? Do you think that the increase should be sort of gradual? Even if we agree that the E150 proposed is market, again, that's up to question. Shouldn't this be gradual over time? Will you agree, or what's your policy here about the year-to-year increase, which is about 50%? How you deal with it?
Can I just jump in there, because I actually think that that's a legal question. I mean, in other words, the statute, the regulation has many factors. And one of the factors, as I think you're hinting at, is the nature, frequency of the increases. But many of the other factors, including the one that we've touched on today, which is the market conditions, essentially relates to what the unit should rent for today. So, and I think you know our position on that, regardless of what the prior owner did and why back when the lease was entered into a year ago or more. So I don't have authority to agree prospectively what the rents would be going forward. And I guess what I would respectfully suggest is that if there's an increase that's contemplated after this one, that it be addressed, if appropriate, by the commission at that time. And I really don't want my client to agree in 2024 what the rent might have to be based on future conditions from 2025 to 2026.
What I understand the commissioner's assertion to be getting at, correct me if I'm wrong, is would the respondent agree that perhaps instead of a 50% increase right now, that if the increase be phased in stages over a period of time? And the answer might be no. I don't know the answer, obviously. 50% is a large number, regardless of who the prior owner was. This is what the, regardless of the reason, I understand that perhaps this is. I think the commissioner's question was whether you would agree, and again, the answer may be no, that perhaps instead of doing it all at once, 50% over time is too aggressive.
If I may, as a landlord myself and others here, if we all agree, again, it's out of question. If we all agree that this is a market now, this is a market condition now, and as a landlord, do you recognize that there is another partner on the other side of the lease? There's another family or person on the other side of the lease, and they have the life there. And their life is not to be disturbed all of a sudden by 50% increase in their biggest bill of the month, which is the lease. And we might reach some compromise and reach the market gradually over time.
Well, the answer is yes. We recognize those things. And I think it's self-evident that the increase is a big increase. I mean, that's not avoidable, deniable. Obviously, we feel like it was below market and we're bringing it up to market. You know our position on that. If it's a question of trying to come to an agreement with the complainant and compromising it, including, as Mr. Chairman indicated, spreading an increase out over time, that's absolutely something I would be willing to discuss with my client. Candidly, I'm unsure if that's something that the commission is asking to adjudicate today, because again, that would require, among other things, a longer term lease so that these potential proposed increases could be phased in, and I don't have authority to agree to that today.
Well, just, we do have the authority to order a phase-in of an increase in rental charge, not to exceed fair and equitable rent in stages over a period of time.
Okay.
You're.
On a year, okay, good.
So we don't have the authority to compel your client to do a 5-year.
Oh, I misunderstood. Okay, yeah,
But it would be, instead of all at once over the course of this year, this lease term, increasing it directly that way. My question is, has that been considered? If it has or hasn't.
No, it has not been considered, and we have not heard that proposal until just now.
Understood. And it may not be agreeable to the complaint. I was wondering if that was just been considered.
So if I understand, Mr. Chairman, that the commission has the option to recommend a sort of longer term lease if both sides would agree.
We can control, I think, whatever we want, but our authority is extended to just this lease term, which is for a year. So whether we agree that the rent is market, we agree that the proposed rental increase is harsh and unconscionable, or somewhere in between. We can issue and fashion an order that is complainants, what they're looking for, respond to what they're looking for, or somewhere in between the phase and the term.
Wouldn't we raise the question to both sides? So will you be agreeable
Well,
by an option like that? That's gradual increase.
I don't want to put the parties on the spot right now. Perhaps after the conclusion of evidence, before we deliberate, we'll take 5 minutes. You guys can talk if you want to. If you don't. Okay, sure. Any other questions from the commissioner? Sure.
So what's the status of the portal? Does it work?
It works.
So how are you supposed to pay rent?
It is, I'm to be completely honest, I'm not involved in the rent collection process, so.
That would be number one. I'd take care of that for your own good. But I wouldn't be asking for Venmo. I mean, that's just unheard of from a professional standpoint. Secondly, I'm very confused. You handed a lease out dated March 24th, 2024. What's the purpose of that?
To illustrate a comparable, the most accurate comparable.
Yeah, that's the lease for the upstairs unit. Yep.
Thank you. Because the current lease requires you to fix the windows. And it's kind of funny that they haven't been fixed. And that's sort of a sign, not a good one. It shouldn't take the Fair Rent Commission to get 2 screens fixed. Again, you guys are representative investors, represent a return on investment, would help you to make it more professional. If somebody has a torn screen, it's clearly documented. You probably knew it, but didn't do it. It's not a good sign. So, again, a couple of small little items that will go a long way to help you make your case for your market rent.
Any other questions from the other commissioners? Ms. Darling, you have a chance to cross-examine the witness.
I've got about 45 minutes to an hour stuff to share. So would you like me to do that?
You have the opportunity to cross-examine the witness, and I can't tell you what you should or shouldn't ask. I can tell you that.
No, that's not what I'm saying. What I was suggesting is, I don't know how long these things.
Neither do we.
Yeah.
So that's what I was thinking, is that well, I'm fine to stay for as long as I don't know about anything else. I was only offering up as
Well, keeping in mind that this portion is a question and answer to the witness, right? Do you have 45 minutes to an hour worth of questions to the witness?
I have about certainly 45 minutes of verification to document.
So for your own testimony,
In regards to what was said.
to your response, right? Right now, though, we're on questions for this witness. Do Do you, if you don't, you might not have any, or you might have a lot, I don't know, you have the opportunity to cross examine.
What's that? Yeah, I have more clarification than I'm going to give on each question.
You could always save that for your closing, so to speak.
I don't have anything to.
Want to have any other witnesses?
No.
So as I understand it, then that's the end of the evidentiary portion of our hearing today. I do want to, as I said, provide the opportunity for you to each close, so to speak. I can tell you based on my experience, Attorney Pierce could probably speak to his as well. 45 minutes to an hour might be overlong, but this is your case here, you're the complainant. I'll give you every opportunity. Just ask that if you do think that you go that long, that perhaps we take a little bit of sense we can use that. My inclination is to try to get this done today, so we can have a resolution.
Sure.
At least a couple of us have served on the RTM. Been there until what period?
Oh, yeah, that's right.
How about 4 AM?
Yeah.
First budget.
All right, so why don't we take a 5-minute break first, okay? Use that opportunity to speak if you want, or sit there or get ready for your closing, whatever you want to do, okay? We'll leave the room.
Wow, it's running the screen.
I know it's not
So much
Should we
work.
just leave the room?
So much work.
Well, okay.
Oh my
I just got here. I didn't understand which time. Vacating.
Good for me to actually listen in from the outside because some of you were fading in and out at times, so I follow what you were saying.
Was the air conditioning better in your office than it is here? Because it's pretty good in here.
It's okay in the offices and rooms. They're all these
Tough building.
yeah,
This is a tough building.
two temperatures to bring hotter.
It's actually, I was surprised. It's actually better than I expected.
Well, I put the other units on, but
It's louder.
more noise.
Right.
It's somewhat difficult to hear.
I thought it was cooler than I expected too.
Or any complaints to them, by the way?
Yes. We might need to schedule a hearing until I.
We'll have experience now.
Restrooms up upstairs and as well.
Can I ask a question, Mark? You asked me to do my presentation ahead of time.
Right.
Why are we getting all of this paperwork? So they had a chance to look at what I had.
I gave them the same, asked them for the same information to provide it in
But did
advance.
they do it or,
I got it today.
so.
Holiday was an issue.
Worse in a courtroom.
I had to request of both parties at the same time to get it in advance, so in case we have.
Well, that's why I was asking because it seemed so strange to me that,
I also know that we had, we were off the 4th, I presume a lot of other people.
Mark, personal question. Sure.
Stayed up the meeting before
My first budget vote. I think I might have gotten.
Nothing like debating sewers at last meeting morning.
It was long. Not everybody, I stayed until the end, not everybody stayed.
You were pre-Zoom days, right? It's easier when you're Zooming from home and you don't have to be like in the actual.
Yeah, I mean, no one,
Imagine beforehand.
people wouldn't have been voting because they would have been asleep.
Yeah, right.
Well, you need the mouse jiggler so that it,
Yeah.
refreshes.
I did go in. Also learned not to schedule any court appearances. Marley, can we chat outside for a second?
Budget season is, it's what I remind myself when I said what. It's like 3 days, like a week, and you're just like sitting there going through spreadsheets of like copy charges and budgets for random things.
Yeah, I was reading today, it costs anywhere from $500,000 to $1.5 million to pave a mile of roadway in the state of Connecticut. Can I get that job? I mean, I'll sign a 20-year contract right now for a lot less.
See you out there, shoveling that ass.
Don't worry, yeah, I'll be partly involved, but there's another tough job. I mean,
I hear you.
For moving on the fly, or?
Yeah, actually, let me grab it. Can you give me 1 minute? I'm just making sure.
Next week. Monster games. Oh, next week. Yeah. Okay. Got 6 more games to play. Okay. It was fun to watch that. Every year, Ronnie O'Gara was there sort of talking to players and hustling in and out. Americans' wife's favorite jobs.
We're ready, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
So, Mr. Rowland, we're gonna start with you for, we're gonna call closing arguments, so to speak, or just that, for closing arguments. So you can feel free to rely on the evidence that you have submitted to us. Again, highlighting for our attention things that you believe that's important for us. It's not an opportunity for new evidence or testimony, or rather a summary of what you have presented to us already. To be responsive to what the respondent has presented, but again, as long as it's something that we've already seen, and it could be advocacy as to why, again, you believe that your position is the correct one, and why the commission should rule in your favor, so to speak. It's not an opportunity for cross-examination of witnesses or anything like that. This is just your opportunity to tell us why what we've heard from both sides, yourself and the respondent, should nonetheless cause us to. I'll ask you just as somebody who has young kids, try to be efficient and keep it quick. But this is your hearing, so make sure you get out there all. Why don't we begin?
Okay, so there are a number of things to address that Mr. Migliotti was discussing. One of the things that I'd like to discuss first of all is that since the majority of his work is around new construction, so I don't think he's in a position to really understand comps for rental properties the way he is proposing. The next thing I'd like to speak to is comps in the neighborhood that that he said were not apples to apples or oranges to oranges that I have on my list. He has taken pictures of these houses that have no relationship to what they actually look like online. He's taken the worst pictures or pictures that do not represent properties. And that is what he is here as representative of what I'm trying to use as comps. I'd like to refer you back to page 8. He disparaged many of the properties that I have as comps on my list in ways that are not truthful. As you can see by what I have outlined as to these apartments, the size that they are, and what they have that 332 sound not. There's quite a lot of things here. Many of the apartments have decks, or almost all of them have granite countertops, and despite what Mr. Migliotti has said, all of them have air conditioning. If you look down the list and really pay attention to it, all of them have laundry. Some of them have heating. Some of them have electricity. And most of them have storage. So, and his contention that square footage is not used, there isn't a real estate listing out there that doesn't tell you what the square footage is, so that you can figure out if you are paying to market price square footage. It's used at all times, every time. So what he's talking about that it's not used, I have no idea what he's talking about. It seems very, very odd to me. So you should not rely on these because they are not the representation of what the properties look like. And more, everything that they have and don't have is here. Fire hosing us with lots and lots of paper right now doesn't really work, and quite frankly, I don't know how you're gonna be able to make a decision this evening without really going through all of this. His contention that this big packet of apartments that are being rented for about the rate that they want to rent my apartment for. These are all much newer buildings. They have garages, they have breakfast bars, they have all kinds of amenities. This is not anything like the building that I'm in. It does make a difference. I'm in a middle class to blue collar neighborhood, a mile from Bridgeport. There's nothing fancy or nothing wonderful about my neighborhood. These comps are not, they're apples to oranges. They're really kind of ridiculous, quite frankly. They do not relate at all to where I am living. And so I'm going to challenge to just not. This is crazy. In terms of the floor plan sketch, I don't know what this is. But it doesn't bear any relationship to my apartment. I don't have any closed porches or open porches or concrete patios or anything off of my unit. In terms of the size of my apartment, I have measurements of all of those. When one measures square footage, you are measuring all the livable areas. Bathrooms are sometimes included. If it's a very large home, the bathrooms are spa-like, so often included. My bathroom's, I don't know, 4 by 6. I don't know. It's very tiny. I don't know where they're getting the number that they are, but I can tell you that I used, digital measurements and measured out my apartment, and my apartment is no more than 600. Like me to supply those measurements, I'm happy to send them to you so that you can see how they were done. But this is fantasy, that apartment is any bigger than that. The other thing I'll point out is whether or not apartments are similar in size. They advertise an apartment on the second floor as 1,600 square feet. They advertise the apartment as, and they are charging based on that amount. Whether the people upstairs know that level, that number of square feet, I have no idea. But if they're going to try and make the case that my apartment should be charged identical to the that's not how they advertise it. So I'm going to take exception to that. In terms of the studio apartments, again, you should really look at these very, very closely. They're in very new buildings, very upgraded, very modern. They have no relationship to where I live. Absolutely nothing. This is fantasy. And if you'd like me to present to you what these are really like, again, I am happy to, but these are fire hosed with a bunch of pages that none of us can possibly look through and understand whether they are true costs. I'm presenting to you that they are not. Okay, because I looked lot of the apartments. And the ones that have spares just being cold and, vinyl flooring, what do you think I have in my apartment? That's what I have in my apartment. I encourage you to take my spreadsheet and to use that spreadsheet as what are really comps, and then on the ends and what they want. I think it's really important that you consider that the size of my apartment is really very, very small, and I should be able to make decisions. I should be professional, because the idea that my apartment is going to be any more than like $2 a square foot, when all the other apartments are at that rate, with so many more amenities, and the buildings are so much newer. It's just, it's how it's done. It's not how it's done. Price per square foot is what all real estate is just. These people are trying to take a commercial residential dwelling and make a profit from it, and I understand that, and that's fine. But making a profit from it by trying to charge me a rent that is unconscionable is simply not the way to do it. They have been completely uncooperative this entire time. They have ignored anything that I've asked for. And I don't feel like I should be in a place where the real numbers are not paid attention to. Mr. Gigliotti, new construction is his deal, because he has no idea what reality is. No more than your average person, I guess is what I'm saying. I'd like these to be gone over with a fine tooth comb before you make a decision, because they have no relationship to comps, to same thing with the floor plan, doesn't represent our apartment at all. I don't know what this is. And I don't know how they measured either. Square foot is measured with a livable area. Livable. I would be willing to, my lease right now says that I have agreed in my lease to an increase in the rent to, I don't know, $22.50 or something like that. I could do that. I don't want to be unreasonable. But $31.50? It's insane. There's no basis for it. I just think there's no basis for it. I'm done.
Yes, I'll be very brief because obviously the commission already heard all of our evidence. Mr.
Why don't you just let
Well, but you said this is not a hearing, so it's not evidence. You know, we're talking about, to turn it into something that sounds like a trial is really not right.
You've had your opportunity, it's their turn,
No, I agree.
so just let them finish what was done.
Yeah, and I'll rephrase it. We heard what Ms. Darling had to say. And Mr. Gigliotti testified to his experience in Fairfield in the rental market and the units that he's rented and his experience in this community. Square footage is mentioned, of course, in listings, but is not the way that you price residential units. And I rest on Mr. Gigliotti's testimony and the commission's knowledge on that point. It's not an accurate way to formulate a fair rental price. What we've done, and I'm not going to repeat them, is we've given comparable units from the MLS, and Mr. Gigliotti's explained why they're comparable. We've given a unit that is highly comparable and that it's directly upstairs, the same footprint, same size, admittedly with one or two amenities, including, as one of the commission members mentioned, a half bath, which which does deserve some price premium. But that is not the difference between the $1,800 to $2,000. Now we've heard for the first time that Ms. Darling agrees to pay more than what she's paid. What she said in her complaint was $1,800 to $2,000. Surely the difference in the amenities, even crediting what Ms. Darling has said to describe the difference between these two units in the same building, is not the $1,000 difference that she's urging the commission to adopt. What I would suggest, based on not only that comp, but the other comps that we submitted, that a price in the low 3,000s is justifiable. A price that's in line with studio apartments, is, of course, 0 bedrooms, is not an appropriate price. And again, Ms. Darling is not a protected tenant. The commission's aware, I'm sure, that price increases may only be fair and equitable for a protected tenant. She's not that. So the standard is a high standard. Ms. Darling, who has a burden of proof as a complainant before the Fair Rent Commission, must prove that a price in the low 3,000s for a 2-bedroom unit in Fairfield is harsh and unconscionable. And even with acknowledgement to what the commission mentioned before in terms of the increase from the prior owner's price, I would submit that that price in Fairfield, Connecticut is not harsh and unconscionable. So we would rest on the evidence that we submitted and want to thank the commission for its time in hearing the respondent's position.
Thank you very much, Council.
But can we explain two legal things, because not everyone here is an attorney. What is exactly protected tenant, legal definition, number one? What the Connecticut statute is saying about the increase of rent year over year? I understand that there is some legal statute about how much you can increase year over year. Let's explain this legal background. But again, what is the definition of protected?
Yeah, I'll answer that question to the best of my knowledge. There is a Connecticut statute which is, I think, essentially incorporated into the Fair Rent Commission's remit, which says that if you are elderly and disabled and live in a larger building, and that is defined, I believe, by statute as being 5 or more units, if you are a protected tenant. And that is a different analysis than what we have today. That analysis is much more lenient, as you might imagine, to the tenant. It says that there must be a fair and equitable rent increase. This standard for Ms. Darling is that the respondent, this is not a subsidized unit. It's a market rate unit. It's not Section 8. It's not a public housing authority. This respondent is a private landlord, and they may raise the rent based on the factors that the commission's familiar with, as long as that is not a harsh and unconscionable increase.
Thank you for that, but now I know what is a protected tenant. Again, to the general question, again, I'm not an attorney, so I guess everyone needs to know that. Is there any Connecticut statute, general, not for protected tenants, general Connecticut statute about how much is reasonable increase year over year? That is for general tenants, not just protected tenants.
Yeah, to my knowledge,
I think that's for us to decide.
to my knowledge, no, and the statutes and the town ordinance identifies the factors that
But
commission.
even asking, as a landlord, we get properties way under market. Once we get in, it's way under market. And attorneys like yourself tell us, oh, be careful when you renew the lease, be careful not to be unreasonable. Because the tenant will have a legal standing to question based on Connecticut statute.
I think
You didn't give me all the details, but I understood that there is some general Connecticut statute that limit your ability to raise the rent.
I think that's what this is. So I think that's what we're here to determine. And we can save that for deliberations and see what is reasonable. But thank you very much, council, for your presentation. Thank you very much, Ms. Darling, for your presentation. Now I think the ball comes to our report. Our deliberations are public, so we have to figure out an answer ourselves, and the parties are entitled to hear it. So I'm going to leave it open to the other commissioners if anybody wants to keep us on for our deliberations. And if not, we're going to go down the line. See if anybody has anything to say. But any volunteers to start with?
I think that the market rate might be more or less established. The adjacency top and bottom of those two units. However, I think that, there's the extra half bath upstairs. But at the same time, the rent it's currently in effect is $21.50, yes. And
Let's not ask questions right now, let's go off the information.
yeah, okay, I'm just going to
Right, at least the witness.
Alright, okay. I'm just inclined to look at a percent rate of the same spot. And the possibility was offered that perhaps, and it wouldn't have to be written into a long lease necessarily to it. But I think for the current year, an increase is probably appropriate, but certainly not $1,000. That's just egregious. I'll leave it there.
We'll come back to that, Dr.
We'll say, I live in that area of Fairfield, and I have rentals in the same area. And I drove by today just to look around. I would say for the owner's credit, the way it looks, we didn't see the pictures out inside. So, but the way it looks outside is not too bad. That's for your credit. And it looks like a very special building. It looks like a castle. It's like 19th century building, isn't it? It's like a castle, and I guess you should be credited of taking care of that historical building in the town of Fairfield. Saying that, and knowing what the market is in the town in general, and that area of the town, I would agree with you that 2150 is on the market, but it cannot go to 3150. You want to increase the rent as a landlord, get close to market, we have to consider again always, think about it. We have to consider that there is another person on the other side. That is, that person of life, and they are established in the place. We cannot just come and say, oh, you sign this 50% or 60% increase with that. This is, I call it that our proposal. I'm proposing that because I want to get rid of it. So it shouldn't be that way. We should be looking at both sides, consider the needs, both sides. Again, as a landlord, I will tell you, yes, I know that you have your needs, the financial needs, everything is going up, taxes, insurance is crazy all over the country, we all agree about that. But it cannot be 50-60%. You have to look again on the other side of the lease and make it reasonable. If you ask me, as someone who has renters already around this area, live in the area, I have a number in mind that I believe would be fair. Want to hear it now? I will propose 2,500 the new year. If the two sides are willing to sign a 2-year lease, so year second, if they are willing to, so year second would be 26.
Well, I don't think we can work with that, so I think we just have to focus on the
Different choice, but my proposal would be 25. I think this is fair for both sides.
For sure, Casey.
I don't discount anything that was presented here tonight. Both sides did a great job. I'm not buying all the comps, no matter who submitted them. They are what they are, though. The MLS is what it is. You're living in a place where the folks upstairs paid a number, and it's a real number. But at the end of the day, if you're going to stay there, I would think you want to get along as a landlord and a tenant. So I look at this very differently. I think options are important. I would increase the rent $70 a month. I would give the tenant the option to leave during the first year if she finds a place and wants to go, with 60 days notice. And if she stays the whole year, the rent is 70 times 12, higher than it is now. But at least it's incremental and you're not writing a check staggeringly different on your first new month in your new lease year. And that's just the way I like to look at splitting the concerns.
So are you proposing a $70 per month increase each month?
With the option for the tenant to be able to leave with 60 days notice to the landlord and no penalty.
Well, I don't know if we can word that, just limit ourselves to.
You're talking about an additional $70.
$21.50.
Every successive
So
month.
it's all $150
The
then?
difference right now is the way I look at it is if it's $31.50 and they're willing to discount the bathroom for $150, their own admission, it's $3,000. And whether or not that's true or not, unfortunately, the people rented it upstairs for that amount. So, that difference is $850. And if you divide that by 12, that's pretty much $70 a month over the course of a year.
If we go with that, Mr. Arvin, would end up the year was close to 3,000 a month.
It would,
Which wouldn't be bad at all.
it would be close at the end, yes.
Carl, do you have any initial input?
I do. So I agree with what the prior commissioner said. I think that an incremental increase would make sense in this regard. Knowing that it was asked how much the difference would be for a half bath upstairs, and it was stated $150. Additionally, it was mentioned at 747 that this wasn't an issue until the comps were shared by the tenant, which to me would signify that when we're talking about justifying if something's harsh or unreasonable, if this wasn't an issue until the comps were provided, then that would be what I would use to make my decision to say how we should move forward. So those were just the two things that I wanted to reference. But something that I think everyone should definitely consider is when we're thinking of the decisions we're making, certainly we're thinking of the people in front of us. And I just want to acknowledge that both parties did share a lot of information. However, we know that, especially with how rent is, it's always fluctuating. So some of the things that were shared from 2 years ago to today does not always provide the most accurate information, just because of how the economies are in today. So I think just referencing that when we're saying if we're not considering certain evidence, it's because also knowing the market that we're in and how things evolve so quickly, and providing the most accurate information to today is helpful moving forward. But that's all. Thank you.
Any response among the commissioners to what any of the other commissioners have said? So if you started.
To you.
Well, it's a novel idea, the monthly increase. So, but it is a way of getting up to that quarter rate. For me, it still feels a little severe. I was thinking more in terms of the simple monthly increase. Something 50. And
250.
Yeah.
To get up to 250.
No,
Oh, for set 250.
an increase of 250.
So that would be up to $2,400.
Yeah.
I will also say that people usually budget for at least a year. So I'm not sure how fair it is to have monthly increase in a residential increase. People usually like to budget for at least 20 years. I myself would not like to live in a place because I have my rent go up every month. My salary is not going up.
Sure, but I think that it would be a phase-in idea would be in lieu of rather than GA or number first, reach up to the number. So instead of saying $2,500, $2,400, or $2,200, phase in to get to that kind of sort of equitable or 10, so to speak, to pay all these things.
I will not speak for the tenant, but I think it's more equitable to anyone to have your budget set for at least the next year instead of struggling every month with the new number.
So you're,
Struggling even to figure out what's the new number every month.
so you're against the phase-in idea.
The monthly increase, I think.
Well, how do we tackle that issue first? How does everybody feel about a phase-in versus just setting a hard number? So you're going back to
I believe again, if we are gonna phase in, we phase it on annual basis, if both sides agree. For a longer term lease that reach.
we don't have that authority now. We can only focus on the year. Here, so we're either phasing it in over the course of that year. Or we're just setting a number. Or choosing a position that either respondent or the complainant. Whatever meets the criteria, the statute and the ordinance lead before us as to, making sure this is not a harsh, unconscionable.
Our rules are against first hearing.
Yeah, no, we're figuring it out.
We're learning as we go. Our rules allow us to ask any of the two parties, is that be acceptable to you? If we decide that, would that be acceptable to you before we decide? Why our rules allow that?
I mean, I think that the parties have had a chance to talk. If there was willingness from the parties to talk, they've had the opportunity to do that at this point. They've left it in our hands to make that decision. We could always take a break right now for 5 minutes and they've gathered some information as to how everybody feels.
I think it would be useful for everyone, not just the commissioners, but for both sides to know where they are. So we come up with a decision, that's kind of an acceptable decision for both sides. So coming with something that.
I don't know if we're gonna try to make everybody happy though, it's gonna be the problem.
I don't know, I think your perception of whether it's gonna be acceptable should be a factor.
Right.
They put it in your hands to decide, just have to decide.
Well, on the other hand, helping to focus emphasis to come to opposed to.
I don't think that's part of our deliberations. Well, I think the parties can talk about this themselves. Like I said, I'm taking a break for another couple of minutes if somebody wants to.
I think that would be useful.
But I think that, I don't think anything that we steer anybody towards, we'll obviously gather some information from the deliberations thus far.
Before we take is it time to make a motion and then we leave the motion on the table during the break for everyone to motion for what will be our decision?
Well, if we come up with the decision, I think we come up with the decision. So I think we either leave the parties to decide amongst themselves and give them one final opportunity to do that, or we just make our decision.
Understand that we make a motion and then it's up for discussion, the motion can change. Based on, the sense we get.
Yeah, well, that's what our deliberations are for. And it's an internal deliberation of the body.
I can make a motion.
Go right. Yeah, it's, I'm looking for direction right now from the commissioners as to where we think this is gonna go. From what I've gathered thus far, 3150 is too high. Everyone's talking about an increase. So this body is somewhere in between 2150 I've heard 2,500 put out there from yourself. Doug suggested 2,400. There's a phase-in option that Jim talked about, $70 per month. Phase-in. But we're talking about an increase to some degree. If there's a number that we want to debate, I'd rather come up with consensus. But if you want to make a motion right now,
Is that a motion on the table and then some discussion?
okay, all right.
So I move that the commission recommend or request or require order that the new lease go up to 2,500 a month. It's a year lease. Starting September 1st.
So everybody second?
Second.
All right, any discussion on the motion for a monthly increase acceptable to the commission that the commission views to be not harsh and unconscionable, to instead be set at $2,500 a month? Okay,
That's.
Mr. Chairman, my addition is no extra charge for the storage. That includes the storage, no extra charge.
I don't think that we have the ability, yeah, I don't think we have the ability to interpret these resentments. It's simply that. We can't expand, track that's for the park.
But if the landlord comes and say he has extra charge for the storage, our order is muted.
The tenant doesn't have to, doesn't have to accept the terms that, you know, we have set at, or the record we've set.
I thought, again, just want to clarify that, I thought one of the points of SBU was with the new lease, it will be separate extra charge for the storage, yes or no? I guess our order should refer to that, when including that.
I don't, defer to our preference. I don't think we have the ability to change the terms of the lease.
I don't think that. See, this is storage, so I think. You can say that, but, so I think you're setting the rent for.
So our agreement, we're gonna keep the storage separate, it's not.
Prior owner made the representation that it was included, and I'm not sure he documented it properly.
So this is just for the rent.
So it would be up to the tenant to say yes or no to that extra charge. It doesn't affect the unit.
The courts, yeah, right, there's separate housing court. Ways in which tenant can some issue with.
So, yeah, this one is clear.
I would also like to attach some sense of the remedies that you guys have agreed to, screens, expanding things are inadequate. The Bilko access to the common area, that situation.
So we can delay an increase in rental charge until specified conditions, such as compliance with municipal code enforcement rules, have been satisfied. I don't read that to say that it must be municipal code enforcement, but that specified conditions that can be satisfied. So it would be amendment to, which would be to establish the rent at $2,500, so long as certain conditions precedent, such as proper locking on the Bilko doors, repairs of the screens, and treatment of the stain water stain are resolved. Do I understand that correct? do you feel about that?
Sounds good. Buy a roll of screen and cut it to fit. They tell you the tool to push it into the frame. Yeah, then you gotta,
I've used those kits from.
that good at it.
Carl, how do you feel about that?
That could be there, but it
Is there a
works.
second on that?
Should we put a timeline on that for like 90 days? Is that reasonable?
By to September.
Yes.
Was there a second?
I'll second. Well, it wouldn't be, Carl, it wouldn't be for 90 days. The rent increase wouldn't go into effect until those conditions were satisfied. So the tenant would stay at the rent of $21.50 until those conditions have been set.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
All right, so the motion before us as amended, as I understand it, for rent increase to $2,500 a month, so long as the conditions precedent, being screens, the lock and the Bilco doors, and the treatment of the stain have all been sufficiently satisfied.
Well, with respect to the security of the lobby.
Right, okay, because he did talk about the locks for the boiler room and the laundry room. So that would be, I think, that's the proposal that we have before the commission. Ready for a vote on that? We'll take a vote on the amendment, so that's two. Thank you, Mr. Barnhart, for my Robert's rules correctly.
Parliamentarian.
Right, I'm gonna put it up for a vote to amend the motion. All those in favor of amending the motion, thus they say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? None? All right, the motion has been amended. Is there any more discussion on the motion as amended? All right, let's take a vote. Vote on the motion for $2,500 rent. Only to be increased, with conditions precedent having been satisfied. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Ayes have it. All right, any other business before the commissions?
No, not.
All right, call to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And we're adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Just a point of administration, Mr. Chairman, or Mark, will this be written up and issued to the parties?
Yes.
We'll give you the written order. All right. Thanks, everyone, for their time.